Hello learners, welcome to the session. Let us discuss induction and deduction methods in this session. Now imagine a chef tries different ingredients or combinations and observes which flavor works best together. Another chef follows a traditional recipe based on the established cooking principles. So how do the contrasting methods of induction and deduction shape our reasoning processes? To explore the answer, it is very essential to understand the concepts in depth first. So let us proceed with the topic's learning objectives. By the end of this topic, you will be able to define induction and deduction, analyze the essential conditions of both the methods, their merits and demerits. The key distinction between inductive and deductive reasoning lies in their objectives. Inductive reasoning focuses on building a theory, while deductive reasoning is centered on testing an established theory. Inductive reasoning starts with specific observations and develops broader generalizations, while deductive reasoning begins with general principles and works towards specific conclusions. Both methods are commonly used in research and are often combined in a single study. Let us understand the concept of induction according to the Oxford English Dictionary word. To induce in the context of science and logic means to derive by reasoning, to lead to something as a conclusion or inference, or to suggest or imply. Induction is defined as the process of inferring a general law or principle from the observation of particular instances. Another explanation describes it as the gathering of separate facts or particulars, especially to prove a general statement. Let's look at the meaning of induction. Induction is one of the fundamental scientific methods following a logical reasoning process. It involves deriving universal generalizations from specific facts. In essence, it requires studying individual cases to draw general conclusions. Observation and generalization are the two key elements used in this method. Inductive conclusions are tentative and may require further confirmation as additional evidence emerges. Now, let's look at the essential conditions of induction. Clover and Basely identify 4 essential conditions for valid induction accuracy. Observations must be conducted and recorded precisely, and data collected must be accurate. Errors in observation, experimentation, or recording can compromise the validity of conclusions. Representativeness observations must include representative cases from the relevant population. For instance, a survey on brand loyalty among young women should include diverse groups such as students, working professionals, graduates, and non-graduates. Proper sampling techniques, like stratified random sampling, can ensure representativeness. Appropriate sample size. The sample size must be sufficiently large to provide reliable results and ensure representativeness. Proper conclusions. Conclusions should be based solely on the findings of the study and not generalized to groups not included in the sample. For example, conclusions about brand loyalty among young women cannot be extended to young men or older women if they were not part of the sample. What are the merits of induction method? Let's check. Induction generates universal premises and helps uncover material truths. It emphasizes the relativity of generalizations, showing their validity within specific contexts. Being scientific in nature, the inductive approach has been instrumental in developing key principles in both physical and social sciences. Inductive generalizations are precise and accurate because they are based on observed facts. Demerits of induction methods are collecting data for induction is complex and demands a high level of expertise from the researcher. Induction alone is ineffective without deduction, as it only generates unrelated facts without establishing logical connections. The process is time-consuming and costly, requiring substantial resources for data collection and analysis. Now, let us understand the concept of deduction. The word defines to deduce as to show or hold something to be derived from something else, or to draw a conclusion from something known or assumed. Deduction is thus inference by reasoning from general principles to particular cases, or the process of deriving conclusions from known or assumed premises. Deductive reasoning is a fundamental form of valid reasoning. It begins with general statements or hypotheses and examines possibilities to arrive at specific logical conclusions. The scientific method employs deduction to test hypotheses and theories. In deductive reasoning, if something is true for a general class, it is also true for all members of that class. For example, all men are mortal. Harold is a man, therefore Harold is mortal. For deductive reasoning to be valid, the premises must be correct. In the above example, the premises all men are mortal and Harold is a man are true, making the conclusion logical and valid. However, a logical conclusion can still be untrue if the premises are false. For example, all bald men are grandfathers. Harold is bald, therefore Harold is a grandfather. Although the reasoning is logically valid, the conclusion is untrue because the initial premise is incorrect. The essential conditions of deduction are correct premises. The general premise or assumption must be accurate for the conclusion to be valid. Relevant application, the general premise must only be applied to cases that appropriately fall within its scope. Here are the merits of deduction. Deduction is simpler and less time consuming compared to induction. It is precise and accurate, employing logical and mathematical tools for analysis. In social sciences, where experimentation is limited, deduction often serves as the primary method for developing generalizations. Demerits of deduction are: deduction may lead to inaccurate generalizations if the premises are incorrect or partially accurate. It is an abstract method. Excessive abstraction in generalizations can render them impractical and unhelpful. So let us summarize now. In this topic, you have learned that induction involves drawing general conclusions from specific observations, while deduction starts with the general premises and applies it to a specific cases. Inductive reasoning generates hypotheses, whereas deductive reasoning tests them. Both approaches are integral to scientific inquiry, often complementing each other in the research. Thank you and happy learning.